Western that overperforms in comparison to Horizon. However, the modern take on Western style movies is very, very lackluster. The Unholy Trinity had a lot of potential. This was a movie that I was excited to see. I enjoy Western movies, but what you really see very early on is that this is a jumbled mess that really fails to find a direction. Now, the whole story is centered around a town called Trinity that a young man named Henry returns to really avenge his father. His father had convinced him that he was wrongly convicted before he's executed, and he needed to seek revenge. This is where, in turn, you see a man named St. Christopher enter the picture. This character is played by Samuel L. Jackson. And what you really see in this town of Trinity is that all hell breaks loose. Not just because of certain situations, but you have people that are antsy, that want violence. You have people that want to keep the town safe. And it ultimately will lead to chaos within the last 15 to 20 minutes. Now, why I said this movie had so much potential was the storyline made sense very early on. However, once we start getting introduced to different characters and some of the characters had a bigger role, it really led the storyline to become jumbled. In some sense, you understand what is taking place, but then you are led a completely different direction trying to understand what actually is being shown on the screen. Now, I always start by going into pros. I think the one thing that this movie had for it was the cast. The cast was very good. I think it could have been done different, though. And that's the problem, is you have a cast that has the names, it has the credentials, but they don't do enough with that cast. I think another pro that goes along with this is really the characters and what their roles are within the movie. I think each character, from the new sheriff to St. Christopher to Henry to the sheriff's wife, they all had a purpose. And I think that allows you to understand what is going to be going on further down the line. But the con to that is we are introduced to mainly secondary characters that provide very little information to the movie. They serve somewhat of a purpose, but their characters, in a sense, were made to be bigger than what they were. And I think that is a problem. I think when you are trying to watch a movie like this and you have characters that are being introduced and you have new situations consistently, you're not able to follow a singular storyline or event. And I think that is where the Unholy Trinity really lacks. It is above average, but it would never be a movie that I would consider good or even great. Now, I said early on that this movie definitely outperforms Horizon, and it does. I think when you look at Horizon, 3 hours, you have different relationships in different territories. Here we are centered in one town, Trinity. And I think that allows you to gain a concept of what the town was like, what they've experienced, and even being able to reminisce on characters that were shown as, for example, Henry's dad very early on and never again, and a character of the old sheriff that is never shown in the movie. And so I think that is a good concept that allows this to outperform Horizon and allows it to make more sense. Now, for an overall rating, this is very difficult in many ways. First, I think it is an average movie. I don't think it is exceedingly great. But I also think that the cons of this movie are why it is here for a very limited runtime. I think it is a movie that was put out there to garner interest, but I don't think the reviews that have already been put out have given it any breath of fresh air or even a feeling of hope going into it. Overall rating for the Unholy Trinity is a 1.7 out of 5. I think this movie is okay. I did enjoy parts of it. That the very end, that crazy scene was done well. I enjoyed it. I think there are a lot of things that are a Western feel, such as shootouts and violence and bar fights. That is present. But I think the overall lack of storyline is what really draws this movie back and will limit viewers' interest, in a sense. They're not going to be intrigued by what they are seeing. So for me, the Unholy Trinity is a 1.7 out of 5. It was a letdown for me in many ways, but it is a movie that I still found some pros and enjoyment from. So the Unholy Trinity is out now. It is going to be a limited run, it seems. Go see it while you can. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. Make sure to go check out the other reviews, and I will talk to you all later.